I think where I see, a point I do see in coaching and people that are coaches in the industry is there's a bit of a divide. There's new school and old school.
We first met, there was no one helped me. I didn't know anyone doing it, and I was like one of the first people trying to really make a go of it. So I was trying to figure it out.
He learned the secrets, and from a pro, another pro, well, from Milos Sarchev actually, who's a well-renowned coach, and he wouldn't share the information.
When you go in a gym or you're a successful PT, it's you have the golden handcuffs, you can't fucking leave. If you leave, you don't earn money. Whereas now you have the ability to go wherever you want in the world, and you're still making sales, doing sales calls whilst you're out here.
My mum don't believe it. She thinks I'm selling drugs or something. She don't understand.
Welcome to another episode of the Physically Jacked Financially Stacked podcast. Today I've got someone who's more jacked than me, so I need to work on this. And that's Mr. Neale Cranwell, who's I don't know how many times Mr. Universe 4 or 5 now. When it goes above 3, you just lose count. So Neale's a really good friend of mine. I've had the pleasure of helping, and I'll come on to a story in a minute, but someone who I really started with in the fitness industry, looked up to when I very began, hence why I've got a really shit copy of his haircut still. So we were about to go into a story before we started the podcast, so I would put it on. So I'll let Neale go into what you're about to talk about.
Yeah, so basically I was just saying how I remember when we first met, and it was when you were building your online coaching business, and you came to my gym, because I used to own Crunch Gym, because I was a presenter on the Active channel, which used to be the hub of information before social media. And at the time when you're on Sky TV presenting every week and everyone's subscribing, you just expect that to carry on rolling. And then eventually all the free information came out on social media and kind of killed TV. But at that point, you were going around in your infancy to try and meet people that had were known in the industry, or gyms that were known in the industry, to record content. And it's funny, here we are probably 15 years later, something like that. And now I'm sitting here learning from you. So where you started sort of coming to me to help you start your business, now I've come back around to learn from you how to create a business similar to what you've done all them years ago. It's a small world.
And then what's funny with that, I think, is that, I don't know, a lot of people watching this might think that they look at someone's chapter 12 and they're at chapter 1 and think it's impossible, but anything is possible if you just think the right way and just really consistent with it. And I think one of the things I always thought about very early on was that, say, the fitness industry, I don't think is that complicated in some respects, which is, I think, one of the reasons why you've been successful, is that if you're in really fucking good shape, that helps. Because I do the thing, if you get really good results with other people, that's the other highest level authority. You also do that, so do I. It's okay, so then this is this vehicle which is extreme authority. How do I get more people and traffic to us and awareness? And that's basically the game. And then obviously there's more to it than that, but that's in essence the way I tried to think about it a lot. So it's how can I learn as much as possible about training, so I knew what I was talking about, I could then help people, and then also how can I improve my own physique, so then I started to stand out more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, when I started, you literally had clients come to you and pinched an inch, physically pinching body fat was to see if they're getting in shape. And so you're only limited to the amount of people that would make that journey. But, back then I'd have people travel from all over the world internationally to come and have training camps in Essex, to stay at local hotels and stay and have me train them. And so, at that point, that was all the market I thought that was available, and I'd done very well at that time. And my goal was always to be as very knowledgeable as possible, similar to you. I would say you're probably on a greater scale have gone to more coaches or mentors or learnt more from other people in the industry, but I've done it to a good extent as well. And sort of over 27 years of coaching, you've picked up lots of ways. I think where I see, a point I do see in coaching and people that are coaches in the industry is there's a bit of a divide. There's new school and old school. And there isn't the old school that still listens to some of the newer age stuff and implements it, which is kind of what I tried to do and tried to pride myself on. Because there are coaches, which I won't name, that I see on the industry that are so still stuck with eating boiled potatoes and tins of tuna, and that's life. But then, I'll come across new school diets for people where it's Cocoa Pop City, and where's the middle ground? And so, I've tried to learn that and always stayed current with what's going forward, because otherwise you're going to get lost in time. And really then when I sold my gym, which was about 5 years ago, I had to learn how to now amalgamate that knowledge into an online space. And so obviously my first point of contact was to ask you, could you show me how you done it? How did you do it? Let me learn from you, because we were like-minded, and I like people. I don't like that many people, but the people that I do like, I like to try and work with them, because then you've got a common sort of ground.
Well, yeah, I think it's relatability and similar values, because you see things from a similar standpoint with certain things. And I know we think the same with a lot of things, including our gaudy fashion taste with things. Which is why Neale's like Mr. Gucci, and I like Gucci as well, so it's cool. But in that regard, I think one of the things that's interesting, I remember this maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the bodybuilding crew of people in the UK were very against online training as a new thing, and now suddenly everyone's pivoted to it, I think.
Well, yeah, there was a divide as well, that you was either an in-person prep coach or you was an online coach, and that meant you wasn't a real coach in that time. And I think maybe because of COVID, but people have been forced into doing that as well. And actually, what I've learned out of it is you can touch a greater amount of audience worldwide with your knowledge, rather than those that are just fortunate to be local to you. So it's allowed me to kind of stem into different countries, and that in itself's great, because you learn different, because every country has a different way of doing things. Like there's different techniques and different styles of eating, training, exercising and stuff come from different areas of the world.
I think one of the upsides of it as well, which people don't realise, which is exciting, as you were just saying before this podcast, about how you went to the shooting range earlier with your son, and he was like, this is the best day ever, because you were going like play with all the guns out of Call of Duty, and like that's the reality of people, like, whether you own a gym or you're a successful PT, is like you have the golden handcuffs, you can't fucking leave. Like if you leave, you don't earn money. Whereas like now you have the ability to go wherever you want in the world, and you're still making sales, doing sales calls whilst you're out here, which is then the one thing I always wanted was like time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom, and this is like a path that I know it can be achieved with, because I did that, and I know other people doing the same thing like yourself.
I mean, I think regardless of whatever your drive is in life, like if your drive was to travel, be financially free, like if it's deep inside of you, you'll make it happen, but you have to really want that. And that goes to people if they want to lose 30 pounds or they want to get jacked, they need to really want it. For me, it was, I've got 2 boys I'm single dad for, and their mums aren't around. So I have to look after 2 young boys, take them to school, take them to after school clubs. How can I do that if I'm stuck working 9 to 5 or stuck in the gym where you're perhaps there from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. at night? How can I take them to school? I won't be a present father. So I needed to find a fit, which to me is more important than the job, more important than the freedom, although I absolutely fucking love the freedom. I've been able this year to travel 4 times, all sorts of places, and not only go to those places, but make money whilst traveling, and more money than you could ever make at home in a month or 2, whilst you're having the best time in your life in Vegas at a gun range. It's almost not real. I'm pinching myself, but it allows these fans. So now I get to be the dad that does all the amazing things with his boys when they're on their school holidays, because I've got the opportunity to, and I can still earn the money. But for me, it was like a big thing to make sure that I'm present for them. So I know that I'll succeed in this, because it isn't just for me, it's like the family that needs to be looked after.
100%. And what would you say, like, obviously you come from a bodybuilding background. I think one of the things we said before this is that people from that background think you can't be successful and be a high-level bodybuilder. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I probably was one of those
100%.
People.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. That's why I'm saying it's a reframe of your own thought process.
Yeah.
Right?
So, I mean, I've been divorced twice purely because being married didn't fit into being a professional bodybuilder. That took over everything. And so, like, hindsight's a fabulous thing. But at the time, I was so tunnel vision that unless you're on board with me, then you'll just get barged out the way. And so, if you want to earn money, I thought the best job in the world as a bodybuilder is just to be sponsored, which I've been sponsored so many times for so many years. but you're just here, and there's never any upward trajectory. You can get by in life, but you've not got really any potential of anywhere to go, and you're just making ends meet. But I thought, because you've got to train, you've got to make all this food, you have to sleep, you haven't got that much time to be career minded. Whereas obviously, like you've just said, you have to reframe your mind. And actually, you've got, like in myself, I've got 27 years of coaching experience. And I say to some of my clients, I'm trying to sign up when they're on the fence, shall I sign or not? And they're having that moment to say, this is what I'm going to offer you. Now, if I had a 4-time Mr. Universe that was going to show me the best way to get in shape and the best way to correct my form in exercise, I would be dropping my pants and allowing them to do it. I would bend over backwards for that. And so nowadays that's available to people. And so you really can not only touch more people, but so many results come on so much faster. And that's hugely rewarding,
100%. I think that's the fulfillment that comes with that, alongside obviously the financial success to look after yourself and family is huge. What would you say was the biggest struggle you had with it initially, trying to transition into the online space?
The computer. Yeah. So, where I come from, like pinching fat on people and writing programs, on an A4, or perhaps typing them out, then you've got to learn all the different ways of educating myself on how to do all the methods that now everything's done online. And that's the hardest thing, is because I suppose in a way I was a bit like a dinosaur stuck in my ways, and I had to learn all the systems that are online in order to, market yourself, advertise yourself, promote what you do. And some of that's like, speaking a different language to me. So the best way for me to learn that was, like coming to someone like yourself and you show me how you've done it and almost give a blueprint to follow, because I can understand that and it's explained a lot easier. What I'd done prior to is try and dabble in the online social media, different methods, emails and sending out that kind of thing, and just wasting time because I was doing it wrong, sending things at the wrong time on the wrong platforms, but not know otherwise. It's fortunate the masterminds and stuff like yourself that can show us the kind of fast track way to succeed, which is, all I've ever done in coaching. You coach people, they come to someone with knowledge to fast track their results. So it's exactly the same thing, and it makes sense.
It's funny you say that, because when we first met, there was no one helped me. I didn't know anyone doing it, and I was like one of the first people trying to really make a go of it. So I was trying to figure it out. And I think sometimes now it's like, if I had myself to coach myself 7 years ago, maybe, what could have happened, because I didn't know what I didn't know at that point. And there wasn't maybe the information or as much maybe mainstream adoption into this thing back then, and maybe a lot more limiting beliefs of my own abilities back then, because I didn't have the confidence. With that being said, one thing I think is interesting is that's why I like fitness and business so much, because they sit over top of each other, because a lot of the processes are the same. So in terms of if you want to get in really good shape, go and find a coach who's done it a million times. Same thing with business. It's first time I got in really good shape, I got a coach, and I was like, this is really fucking easy, because I just did what he told me to do. And the same thing with business is someone will say you do 1 to 2 things, you do it, it works. That was straightforward. Rather than you doing the computer roulette of going through different apps and fucking around thinking you're working but not really being productive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and if you can explain the method and the reason why it's working, for my mindset, that helps it sink in. So that's the way I coach people, and that's the way you obviously coach. But when you explain, we're doing it like this because X, Y, and Z, okay, that makes sense. And so I will stick to that because I can see the methodology in it. I think there are lots of coaches out there who will say, just do this, without any rationale. And so, if you told me, Charlie, I could never eat carbs again because that's just the best way to live, or to get jacked, or to lose fat, and I think, okay, well, that's what he says, he knows what he's doing. There's a point where I'm going to think, fuck that, I'm having a bagel. There's going to be a point where I break down. But if you explained a little bit of rationale, I'll go, okay, that makes sense. I understand why I shouldn't. And so without paralyzing people with too much information, just enough to, just to get that benefit from the person, I think is important.
And I think that's one of the biggest reasons people struggle, is same for fitness clients, is they're doing something that we don't know why, Whereas if you know why and you believe it's going to work, you're going to do it, right? It's like same thing as someone said to you, it's like you can buy this Ferrari for £10,000, but it's actually worth 100. It's like you're going to do it because you know the upside value of that longer term. But if you don't understand what happens after you do this thing properly, then you're probably going to be less inclined to really put you all into something because like, it might not work.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm learning and you know what I've learned so far has been fantastic, and one of the reasons it's opened a big door for me is because I've learned fitness inside out for for nearly 3 decades. So in a way, it's almost a little bit boring and monotonous because you can't rewrite the wheel any further. You know, you've learned it so many ways over. So now learning this side of fitness was a whole new chapter. And like the takeaways I get each day or each week, and I've texted you on some of them, is like it's like my brain's working again. It's like and I feel like I can pat myself on the back now because I've learned something new, but it's still related to what I love, and so it's been great. Yeah, it's been a really it's probably been the best sort of year or so in at least a decade. You know, that I've like through work, because I was just turning up, opening the gym door, listening to all the members' troubles and
bullshit.
Yeah, and and then closing the gym door and repeat, and it was quite repetitive after 15 years of doing that. But now, and what I see as a trend now in this industry is it doesn't stay still, and you need to be current. And so what worked a year ago when I started, or 6 months ago, it's not the same. It keeps moving forward. So stuff that I've done even with you is now outdated from a year ago, and you keep your finger on the pulse, which helps, because again, without that knowledge, you're just going to spin your wheels. And so it's allowed me to keep moving forward, but keep on top of things. The only arse-ache about it is just when you think you've conquered things, it then goalposts move on you, and you think, oh, for fuck's sake, I've got to start again and do this other slightly different approach to do it. But I think you have to have that personality inside, that you like the chase, you like the drive, you like the desire, and you like that business side of it. And I think which I do, and many years ago I used to work in Tenerife as a timeshare salesman, which is like the worst job in the world, but you learn to be very savvy and think on your feet. And so it's kind of, I've had some swings back to that in my in that method of how it's, some of those traits I had back then were laid dormant that I can bring back to fruition now.
And one of the things you said there, that's like one of the best skills you can have generally in terms of your business ability to sell. And with that being said, I think one of the things you probably wouldn't have said to yourself is that the main way you make a lot of your money is now via LinkedIn as well. It's like some of the best clients come from there, which someone had said to you probably 3-4 years ago, what the fuck is LinkedIn? Like reality. And that's where sometimes like you don't know what you don't know, you're just like blinded by things sometimes. Yeah,
but again, like LinkedIn was not a traditional platform for posting content on social media. It was more of a business platform. So I didn't even know how it operated. So when I've then been like advised that LinkedIn's actually a really great untapped market of the type of clientele that you're looking for, that are actually affluent and have got money. But how do you work it? Because I had to learn that process again. But that was probably the best shift I'd done, because on social media from Instagram, you've got a completely mixed bag of people and followers, whereas on LinkedIn you can target your audience. So that's been, for me, that's been hugely successful.
Yeah, I think that's sometimes where, and you'll see this in the fitness industry as well, like people are like sheep and they all fucking follow each other off to do the same thing. So it's like someone says, I don't know, whoever's like the flavour of the month in terms of coaching or training or whatever the time, everyone does the same thing. So it was like the JP thing for a while, right?
Yeah.
And then it was something else before that. And it's like everyone goes through that rigmarole of like copying each other. And the online coaching scene is the same, where certain things tend to get flooded by doing the same crap essentially.
Yeah, no, you're right. The thing, what I've learned from being online doing this myself, is it takes you away from that. It takes you away from that bodybuilding coaching. And I had a training session with a client this morning, and he lives out in Vegas, but he was originally from the UK, and he brought that topic up actually about who the big names are now, who the coaches are. And to be honest, I don't really know anymore, because I've lost that I've got that connection, that interest to follow. But I remember it being so important to me, perhaps 10 years ago, as a coach trying to fight for that space. Whereas what I realise now is there's so much to go around if you take yourself just out of your country and use the internet to go worldwide.
I think one of the things with that, a lot of people say to me is like, why would you teach other people to do what you do and give away the stuff you do, because you're going to create competitors for yourself? It's like, there's like 8 billion people on the planet. There's 100 million men in the US who fit our ideal client. It's like, how many clients do you need, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that's, I think, in my opinion, like a British scarcity mindset in terms of being like very constricted and afraid. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that holds people back. And one of the best ways for people to change their mindset is actually to change their environment. So I was thinking about the other day when you, me, Trevor and Andy's over there were training legs the other day. I was like, this is pretty cool. I was almost going to say to the time, I don't know why I doing it. I was like, do you remember we first met? I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, we'd be doing this right now. So it's like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And when you look at things sometimes, like, fuck, this is sick.
Yeah. No, exactly. But, you're right. When I started in coaching, I remember going to a coach, a professional, an IFBB pro, I won't mention his name, but he learned the secrets, and from a pro, another pro, well, from Milos Sarchev, actually, he's a well-renowned coach, and he wouldn't share the information because in case you leapfrog him in the competitive order. And so that mindset has always been there around bodybuilding. But you're right, like if you take the scale much further and out of that small pond, then, and I found actually even in my, I suppose, infancy online coaching, so I've not been doing it at this level for that many years, is when you speak to other people about how you're doing the business, it actually opens other ideas and doors in your own head to help you progress with what you're doing if you try and explain a little bit in how it works. And so I think by sharing the knowledge, I think it's helping like everyone move forward, not just the person receiving it.
Before you started online, what would be the best piece of advice you'd give yourself now, if you knew it now, know in hindsight?
To be honest, the bit of advice is exactly the same as what I say and have said to like anyone that came to me for fitness coaching years ago. And that was like, for about 3 or 4 years, I tried to be a competitive bodybuilder. So for 6 months, I followed the keto diet. Got on stage, looked like a bag of shit. Thought that didn't work, so now let's try a low-fat diet. 6 months prep, still didn't nail the condition stuff I wanted. And I kept trying this, and eventually, after 3 or 4 years, thought, I need to seek some advice, because I'm wasting time. And absolutely everyone I speak to in this world, day and age, that's the thing they got in common. They haven't got enough time. So why would you keep wasting 6 months of trial and error, when you should just go to someone that's been there, done it with experience and can show his experience in results with other people, not just himself, and learn from all of his time, effort and wasted years to prevent you wasting yours. And so that's what I've done with my coaching. It took me about 4 years of my own bodybuilding to actually go to someone and learn from someone else. But that's exactly what, from day one, when I went to go online coaching, the first thing I've done was actually message you and say, Charlie, who's out there, who's the best person for it? And because I want to move it forward, and I know I won't have haven't got the capacity of knowledge to know where to start to build it up. Unfortunately, now you do it. At the time, you didn't.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the reasons I do it now. I actually said this on a call with someone else earlier on. It's like I never intended to do this or wanted to do this. It just sort of happened because someone came to me, basically had a load of shit advice and basically begged me to do it. And then I was like, fuck it.
That was me.
No, there was someone else as well, there was a few. And then I was like, fuck it, like, this is how much it is, made up a price, sent a payment, they can just pay me. I was like, well, it's easy. I was like, okay. And then I really enjoyed it, and Henry was really good at it. And it's like, this became the thing I was more passionate about, because almost the same thing as you in terms of fitness. It's like, I haven't been doing it quite as long as you, but I've been doing it for a while. And it's like, I'm a bit fed up of talking about calorie deficits and macros and doing the same fucking shit over and over again. Whereas this is like a game that can just keep on getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and has more diverse, challenging aspects to like mentally stimulate me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. I see that, and I saw that when you crossed over from the not sure whether I'm doing this or not. Then you started, actually, you found it's now your brain's now active and working, and now you've got more thought process. It kind of brought everything back up and alive. You feel alive again, right? Yeah.
Because you're excited and stimulated. And I think if people are at a point in their business where they're not alive, excited, and stimulated, like it'll go backwards, and I can guarantee you that, because if you're not at that point, then you're probably not trying hard enough. And also, if you're not at the point, in my opinion, it's not a popular thing to say, where you get stressed and anxious sometimes, you're also probably not trying hard enough, because yes, it's quite straightforward as a process, but it is still hard, and there's always going to be times where it's shit. So like before the event we had this weekend in Vegas, my Instagram account got disabled again. Before I had fucking an event for 2 days, my main revenue source is fucked. And I was like, this is like great timing to throw my mood for the weekend. But you just try and like compartmentalize it. And I think people will learn, the longer you do these things, the more you just learn to expect things to go wrong and get challenged by them. And just, I try and reframe things of like, what's the lesson that I can learn from this to try and pivot out of the situation, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, the reality of that situation was you show that no one's untouchable, and this is what you've had to do even when it happens to someone yourself who knows it inside out. So it's very easy to happen to someone who hasn't got that knowledge and isn't in control of their account perhaps as much. But you know, like what I've learned about having that motivation is like I've been on 3 masterminds, I think, now with you, and it's because of the time. They're just spread apart enough for when that motivation in my own self just starts to slow down. I think, oh, so actually, there's a mastermind in a month's time. So it gives you that goal to work towards, and then you get a massive uplift, just, you know, not just from yourself, but being around the other clients that are on the mastermind. Because again, you talk to other people in your network and everyone's sharing. And they're sharing their ways of how they've improved. And what's hard, and probably the hardest thing about this, which you probably agree with, which I noticed, is I'm not an insular person, and I realised I could make a lot more money by just face planting my laptop all day long. But then it's your very lonely existence, and I'm used to being surrounded by people all the time. So I had to find the balance of still training some of the people that I like enough, and get rid of the personal training clients that I didn't. So I still had that touch point. And then I still do the online stuff to find that balance. And I found that was the thing I noticed was the biggest factor for me, was it can be quite a lonely existence. People see you traveling around Vegas, Dubai, this, that, the other, living the life, and you get to see all these places, but they don't see the grind where you're just locked in your apartment, blasting behind a laptop, And I think that's important. And then if you've got the desire for all the fun stuff, that only comes if you do the work first.
I 100% agree. And I think the loneliness thing is one of the biggest reasons why I'd say being part of a community is an important thing. And actually probably one of the reasons why I was like, fuck this, I'm just going to do it and build the mastermind I'd want to be in. Because I enjoy it, which is probably why I like it so much, because as much as I teach everyone else, I get ideas from talking to people like, fuck, I should do that. It's a really smart idea. And I had something from the weekend that was genius that like Enter the Matrix moment, like mapped out on this huge piece of paper. Because one thing that's from like your external environment that can just spark something like fuck, and that can change your life. And that's where sometimes too many people are. They do end up insular, and they don't. You have like your field awareness, like what you can see around your eyes, right? Whereas like if you can be in a bigger group and people are killing it, and then you've got a much bigger field of awareness, you've got more better information coming to you, so you can make better decisions. And the success of your business could be determined by the decisions you make, like whether it's a good one or a bad one. It's going to take you towards the goal or away from the goal. And that's where like information as well as the execution is the key thing.
Yeah, I mean, and as an example of being here this weekend, so the first day, I think it was the first day of the mastermind, I was here surrounded by everyone and talking. Everyone gets on really well, which is unique in itself, and everyone's very friendly. But I had a good chat with about sales, and with Andy about sales, and that forever
spousal objection, wasn't it?
Yeah, the spousal objection forever comes at you. And that day, or the next morning, I had a phone call, and it was the spousal objection. And everything Andy had just told me was just still in my head. So I just reverberated everything he told me in the same way. And then I can see all the barriers getting dropped down. And it's that stuff that if you don't go and surround yourself with people, you get stuck in your ways. Now, some of them ways do work, but sometimes they don't. And so to have more information and more ammunition, and then, I come away and that fella signed up for $5,000. So that's like, thank you, Andy.
So he's listening behind the camera, so you can say thank you, Andy. But if you just realise what you just said there, you sold someone a fitness program for $5,000. Even the context of that a few years ago, be like, what the fuck? Like,
I'm still falling off my seat.
Yeah.
I'm still falling off my seat. I get off the phone and think, is that real? Like, someone pinched me, but and to be honest, again, going back to mastermind, surrounding yourself with people, that massively helps you believe
it can be done
in yourself, and it can be done. Because before that, I thought a fitness program was £700. That was where I was at when I was coaching people in the gym only a few years ago, because that's a going rate face to face when you're stuck in your locality in Essex in one area. That's the going rate for your local personal trainer, coaching or whatever. But when you scale it out to the whole across the world, there's different remits, different people are charging different amounts, and so. But you have to believe it's possible. And when you're surrounding yourself with people, and I'm just scratching the surface compared to others, you're like, wow, this is possible, and your aspirations are endless, limitless.
Why was there a moment for you that really broke a glass ceiling in your head, thinking, oh fuck? You sent me a few messages, which I thought.
Yeah, I have sent a lot. I've sent you lots of messages. Yeah, bless you. There's lots of big time moments where there's been so I'd say probably one of the biggest things, which I think I've told you before, is when I got my two boys all to myself, and I had to find a home. Now I was looking to, like we do, at renting a property or buying a property like you do, and where are you going to move to? And I decided to go all in and get a penthouse, because I've always wanted one, and it's so much money. But I knew that if I got there every day, me and my boys would love the views, love the coming home. And as you get older, you spend a lot of time at home. But more so than that was, I know that if I live here, I'm going to be reminded every day why I'm working. And if I don't work, if I put myself in a small 2-bedroom apartment, which was a third of the cost, I'll just do enough. But if I put myself up here, I will work and make it very possible. And see, now, the rental price or the mortgage price isn't even on the radar, because that belief is well surpassed. And so that was one of the moments there for me. I had a Gucci moment as well, which was another moment.
That was a good story. You tell that one.
So my backstory is, I was brought up by a single parent, lived in a council flat. My brother, we never had any money. We had food stamps. We were skint. But we had a lot of love, but we didn't have any money. So it was I don't feel like I went without, but I never had a dad, so I'd never had that side of things. And my mum had worked 3 dead-end jobs in order to take us to school. Now, that's exactly what I didn't want to do, in order to take my kids to school. But, you see people online, or you walk past these designer stores over the years, and I've never got to the point of going into one and not looking at a label, a price tag, and think, I'd like that, but it's a bit too much. I'd like that, but it's a bit too much, and shop around. And it got to the point a few months ago, 6 months ago, whatever it was, when I decided, because I've, secure in what I do now, I'm just going to go into Gucci, because I don't like Gucci a little bit. I'm going to go into Gucci and I'm just going to buy what I want and see if it dents me. Not look at the labels. And I went in and I bought, and it was like How the Other Half Live. It was a moment, How the Other Half Live. And when I come out of that, I was buzzing, like flying. Now, the next day, I had 4 sales calls to close. And in my head, when I was in Gucci, it's like, I'll just close them sales calls. If I close them sales calls, I've got nothing to worry about. But if I don't, that might sting me in the arse. And so I got on the phone call the next day, driven by my uplifted way, and honestly, I've noticed that your demeanour and the way you come across on the sales call, especially on the Zoom call, has if you can get the person on the other end of the call to like you, it's a much easier sale. And so because I was buzzing from the Gucci moment, I closed all 4 sales. So not only did I buy what I wanted from Gucci, but I made, you know, a good amount of money on top of that as well. So actually speculating helped me achieve more than if I would have sat there on the fence.
And with that, it's an important thing, like a perspective shift. So even like you said to me a minute ago, it's like we were in a 5-bedroom house in Vegas. It's like, oh, how long are you all staying here? It's like, oh, the other 2 are leaving in 2 days or whatever. And it's like me and Charlie, my girlfriend, are here on our own for like 4 weeks. And the house is like, you'd be knocking around. It's like, well, I can. And also I like having a nicer space and things like that, because it makes me work harder and I work better in that environment. And my mum said the same thing. She's like, what the fuck, you've got such a big house for like 2 of you? Like, you could get a little apartment. It's like, yeah, but I don't want that. Like, I'd rather just work harder and have like somewhere nicer to stay. And if I'm in a better frame of mind, I'm gonna be more motivated to work, I'll sell better, and it will pay for itself like 5 times over. So it's like, a lot of the times people need to understand that sometimes cutting short on things and like, oh, not wanting to spend the money on something can actually, like, psychologically, you're denting your own confidence and like, oh, you haven't really got that, like, Neale, you haven't really got that, Charlie, just hold back because you might not make it back. And that almost like lingers in the back of your mind when you start to go into like sales calls and things like that. And that the like thoughts become things, scenario starts to come to mind because the sales calls start to not close. And we all know what that's like when you're in a run, you're taking calls, it's like, this is fucking shit, I can't close anything. But then you have other times where you're like, you feel like you might as well open the call and you're like, Visa, Amex, like, what do you want to do? Like, because it's just like, you know, it's a pre-gone conclusion.
Yeah.
And the more you can try and set yourself up for success and the way your mental energy is with those calls, the better you're going to convert.
Yeah. So I look at, I'd say this, which is exactly as to what you're saying, to clients that are in their little pure gym or their local gym, and they're not making progress because they're like a goldfish in a goldfish bowl. Like, their surroundings aren't there. If you put that same goldfish in a great big pond, the goldfish grows like 10 times the size. And it's similar to what you're saying there about your environment. What I'd say about being in this, going on from what you said there about having a bad run of calls and then a good run, that was one of the things that I found really hard to get my teeth around. Because I'm used to people knowing me, people wanting to come to me, people wanting my advice. And so when I had a bad run, it was like I'm single getting blown out by 10 different like attempts to go on a date, and everyone's blowing me out and knocking your confidence. I just wasn't used to it. Or when people didn't come back to you when they promise you that they're going to have a think about it and come back to you tomorrow, and they didn't. And I was not used to it. And it was like, I felt it was personal at the start. And I was like, oh, it's really ruining my day. Like, these things are ruining my day. And then as I've got on, and a few years have gone by, I've realised that actually it makes it much more fun. Like, I actually like the chase and the ups and downs, and then you can sort of, you can make it a game almost. But that's probably for me what I like the most about the job, is because you're never secure. Like, you're never quite sure what's around the corner. No matter how well planned your business is, like, you've been doing this a long time, and your internet's just your Instagram's just got like stopped. Like, that shouldn't happen, but these things happen. There's a challenge always to keep you on your toes, and I think that stops you being stale, and it keeps you buzzing to move forward.
Well, yeah, it stops you getting complacent, and I think it then. One thing I think I've said this to you before is, like, the more success you get, the extreme highs are more high, the lows are low, right? So it's that pivoting difference. Because there's more of a distance between the 2 points. And I think that's what some people start to struggle to deal with. One thing you mentioned was obviously the relationship with your mum. I imagine she must be pretty proud of you.
My mum don't believe it. She thinks I'm like selling drugs or something. She don't understand. But for me, like I said to you at the start, I said, this isn't about me earning money. I'd love to be in a position to earn enough money that I can pay for my mum's life, pay for my kids. Like, make sure my mum's looked after, and to have the opportunity to buy her things now around the house or with a car or whatever, now that, like, the giving to my loved ones in my family, because they're the only people that don't seem to let you down, although some families are unfortunate like that, like, that's massive for me. And when, you probably know it's more than anyone, but when you can buy most things for yourself, doesn't really have too much value for you. But if you can buy something for someone that really appreciates it, and my mum does, it's like, that makes me want to do it even more. So I pay my mum a little monthly salary just to be my mum. But she's looked after me all my life, you know. So it's, for me, that's really rewarding. Like that's fantastic to me. But to have the opportunity to have that sort of thing, because I never thought, you know, at the start that would ever be the case. And now, you know, I can take my whole family out all the time without a worry. Whereas before you would break it all down. And those moments are the things that make me really love the job that I do, is because it gives you that back for family.
100%. What would you say is the last question if anyone's sitting on the fence about reaching out for help?
Well, so I've been asked quite a few times. People, because I've got a decent enough following online, people do ask me, come out of the blue and ask me, what do I think about working with Charlie? I see you working with Charlie. And I've worked with 3 masterminds, you know, so I've tried to learn in different stages from different people. I think, and all I've ever said to anyone with yourself is how great you are as a person, because you're in the business and you're doing the business of the mastermind as well. Whereas I think the other masterminds, they're just doing the coaching. They're not got the business, so they haven't got their finger on the pulse of what's active, and you're passing that real-time information across, but also you're approachable. Like some of the other masterminds have allowed their finances or whatever to get above their station a little bit. So again, this goes back to what I'd say to anyone that wants to improve their fitness level or to lower their body fat, or they're trying a different diet and it's not worked. Stop wasting your time doing the thing that's not going to get you the end result, and go to someone who's, you know, you've been doing it for forever. It's got a massive track record, is likeable, approachable, and can show you the shortcuts. Like, why would you not do that? But people have mentors in other aspects of business or life, or they have a fitness coach. It makes no sense to me why you wouldn't have a mentor in the business side of it as well. It's exactly the same to fast track you. So whenever you guys are out there and you're not sure, see this guy. He knows what he's doing.
Drop Neale a message for any questions. That being said, we'll drop Neale's details below the podcast if anyone wants to check him out. Really, really appreciate your time. If you guys enjoyed the podcast, make sure you subscribe, share it with a friend, get some more people to download the stuff. We'll be providing as much value as we can to help online coaches. And we'll see you next episode soon. Thank you.